Hey, come along with me while I renovate my terrible existing shower in my primary bathroom. The existing shower just wasn't what we wanted. It was pretty shoddily done in the original construction, and it used this, as you can see, white fiberglass kind of plastic pan that over time it just started to get a little moldy, get a little yellowed. We didn't really like the results of it anymore, so we thought it was a good idea just to rip the whole thing out and start from fresh, put an entirely new shower in that was fully tiled. So invited one of my friends over. We got to work tearing it all apart. But as soon as you open things up, you always realize that there are problems. And even though this was a new construction home only in the last 7 years or so, once we took all the stuff down, we realized that the joists weren't straight. It needed a lot of modifications to get them to line up properly, and even down the line we ran into a lot of problems. I decided I wanted to do all of the renovations myself, so I had to go about learning how to use PEX plumbing. It wasn't too complicated. There's two types, PEX A and PEX B. The existing setup was a PEX A setup. I was able to find all the necessary tools and everything I needed to use for adding to it with a PEX B setup. So here I am basically putting together the shower rough. It's a Delta shower setup. Generally pretty easy. Just took me a little bit of effort to put it all together and making sure that I didn't have any leaks once I screwed everything in. So this is the PEX setup once I started roughing it in, measuring all the distances that I needed. It's super easy to use. You just cut it, and then once you get it to the size you want, you put these elbow joints on it and put these kind of crimp rings on it, and it's all together. Once you're done all that, putting it in the wall is way simpler than using copper piping. We decided to go with, instead of a traditional concrete backer board, this sort of foam board with concrete on either side of it. It's called Hydroblock. It goes together pretty simply. It comes with a shower pan that you have to put in with some thin set. And then once you put all the boards in, you use a sort of rubber sealant that you spread along all the joints and the holes that are made once you secure it to the wall. And overall, it goes pretty nice. You can cut it with a multi-tool like we were here, or you can use even just a box cutter, and it works really nicely. Of course, we had to do quite a bit of modifications because of the aforementioned unsquareness of everything that we had there. Once I was done all that, I decided I really wanted a light in the shower. It was quite dark in that nook, and I'm not sure why the builders didn't put that there in the first place. As well, we have a bidet attachment for our toilet, and we didn't have an outlet. So at the same time, I decided to throw one of those in. Just finishing up the waterproofing here. You got to make sure all the cracks are covered with a tape and some more of that sealant. And then I went to work putting together the corner bench that we were going to put in. Pretty easy. Now we're on to the tiling. We probably cut tiles for over 6 days. One of the main problems that we had was we got very excited about these large format tiles. The smallest tiles we used were 4 foot by 2 foot tiles, and the largest tiles we used were 4 foot by 4 foot. So unfortunately, we weren't able to find a tile cutter that was going to work for the job, and ended up having to get pretty much the biggest one we could find, which would only accommodate up to about 36 inches. So some of the cuts that you see me doing here with a wet saw are some of the only cuts we were able to do. Most of the others I had to do by hand with an angle grinder. I definitely could have bought a handheld tile saw, but I really don't plan on doing too much tiling after this, and that really would have just been a tool that sat there not being used again, so I didn't want to make the investment. The floor tiles, we decided against using a mosaic tile, which would have been a lot easier. That just required us to make all these angled cuts that you see here to allow the water to drain into the drain itself. Overall, it wasn't too difficult once we got the hang of it. More tile cutting. These are the tiles we're using for the majority of the shower. They have sort of a wood grain look to them. Very trendy, but made it more difficult to align the patterns. Lots of cutting and measuring. These are the large tiles that we had that were 48 by 48. These are going to go on one wall, and they match the color on the floor and the corner piece that we used. Once we started laying these wood grain tiles, we realized they're a lot more complicated than we really bargained for, and aligning all the different patterns was quite challenging, but in the end we were able to do it. Just a lot of small modifications here and there. I think this tile I'm putting in right now is the only tile we did not make a cut on. So every single tile was modified in some way, which was just fantastic. I decided to fill in some of the extra gaps that were made because nothing was perfectly square with some extra thin set as a backing. Then I was on to grouting. This in the video looks not too bad, but all told, off camera I spent I would say close to 6 hours scouring out excess grout because the tiles themselves in all the wood grain is textured. And so the little grooves collected a significant amount of grout that I had to go and kind of manually rub out one by one. It was the time of my life. I had such a great time doing it. I would 10 out of 10 recommend it to anybody looking to spend an entire weekend in a room with no ventilation at 40 degrees Celsius. It was just an utter joy. Overall, the grouting process I got done in about a weekend. And then it was on to doing some drywall repair. Our house uses some textured walls, so I had to figure out how to do that. And then once I painted all the little patches I made, I realized the paint that I got from the paint store wasn't a match, and I ended up having to do the whole room. Putting in the shower door itself is a single piece of glass, and it took me probably a solid 2 to 3 hours of drilling with a tile bit to get through the tile. And then I completely forgot to record installing the door. So this is great. Probably way too late into the process, I decided to test the shower, and luckily it worked. Here I am doing way too many thumbs up. I'm not quite sure why I was so thumbs up happy, but yeah, I was pretty pleased with myself. Let's hope it doesn't leak. And there you have it. That is the finished product with the door installed. I put a shelf in the corner to hold all of our supplies. Got the place all cleaned up, and overall, pretty happy with the results. Everything seems to be working okay with a few days of using it so far. Thanks for watching.